She had been the kind of woman everyone noticed when she disappeared, not when she smiled. For months, maybe longer, Maya had become a shadow in her own neighborhood. The kind of presence you register only in absence. A door that no longer opens at the usual time. A porch light that stays off. A voice that used to call out good morning, now silent. Then one morning, something shifted. She sat on the front stoop of her narrow row house, hands wrapped around a chipped mug of coffee, watching the neighborhood wake up. The sky was soft with early light, pale pink bleeding into gray. A jogger passed. A man walking his dog. A woman pushing a stroller. None of them looked her way. And for the first time in a long time, Maya thought, what if I tried something else? Not a grand plan. Not a promise to fix everything. Just something else. Maya Reyes had lived on Elm Street for 7 years. Long enough to know which houses had the best Halloween decorations, which neighbors played music too loud on weekends, and which kids rode their bikes in wild, fearless loops down the block every summer evening. She used to be part of it all. The block parties. The potlucks. The casual hellos that turned into 20-minute conversations on the sidewalk. But that was before. Before her husband, David, got sick. Before the hospital visits became routine. Before the medical bills piled up like a second mortgage. Before the long, slow goodbye that stretched over 2 years and left her hollowed out, standing in a house that felt too big and too quiet all at once. David had been the outgoing one. The one who remembered everyone's names, who organized the neighborhood cleanups, who brought donuts to the school fundraisers. Maya had always been quieter, more reserved. She loved people, but from a distance. She loved her neighborhood, but she'd never been its center. When David died, it felt like she lost her place in the world twice. Once when he left. And again when the invitations stopped coming. Not because people didn't care. But because grief is uncomfortable. Because people don't know what to say. Because after the funeral, after the casseroles and the sympathy cards, life moves on, and the grieving are left standing still. So Maya withdrew. She stopped going to the park where the other moms gathered on Saturday mornings. She skipped the neighborhood association meetings. She ignored the group texts about block party planning. She dropped her daughter, Sophia, off at school and picked her up without lingering. She smiled politely when neighbors waved, but she didn't stop to talk. It wasn't anger. It wasn't bitterness. It was survival. Because when you're barely holding yourself together, small talk feels impossible. Because when you're drowning, you can't also pretend to swim. But inside, quietly, Maya carried a longing. A longing for peace. For lightness. For the version of herself that used to laugh easily, that used to feel at home in her own life. She didn't know how to get back there. But she knew she couldn't keep living like this, half present, half disappeared. So one morning, sitting on that stoop with her coffee, she made a decision. A small one. Almost embarrassingly small. She would try. Maya's first step was so modest she almost laughed at herself for calling it a step at all. She decided to plant flowers. The small patch of dirt in front of her house had been neglected for months. Weeds had taken over. The soil was hard and dry. It looked exactly how she felt inside, forgotten, untended, stuck. So she went to the hardware store on a Saturday morning, Sophia in tow, and bought a flat of marigolds. Bright orange and yellow, almost offensively cheerful. She also picked up a small bag of soil, a hand trowel, and a pair of gardening gloves that were too big for her hands. When they got home, Maya knelt in the dirt and started digging. Sophia, who was 8 and fiercely observant, sat on the stoop and watched. "Why are we doing this?" she asked. "Because it's time," Maya said simply. "Time for what?" Maya paused, trowel in hand, and looked at her daughter. Time to make things grow again. Sophia seemed to accept this. She came over and helped, patting the soil around each plant with her small hands, humming a song she'd learned in music class. By the time they finished, Maya's knees were dirty, her back ached, and her hands smelled like earth. But when she stood and looked at the neat row of marigolds, something in her chest loosened just a little. It wasn't much. But it was something. The next week, she did something else small. She started walking Sophia to school instead of driving. It added 15 minutes to their morning, but it felt good to move, to be outside, to say hello to the crossing guard and the woman who ran the corner bakery. Then, a week after that, Maya saw a flyer at the library. A community center a few blocks away was offering a free watercolor class on Wednesday evenings. She hadn't painted since college. Hadn't even thought about it. But something about the flyer, the soft wash of blues and greens, the words "all levels welcome," made her tear off one of the little tabs with the phone number. She called. She signed up. And the following Wednesday, she showed up. The class was held in a bright, slightly drafty room with big windows and mismatched chairs. There were 7 other people there, mostly older women, one man in his 60s, and a younger woman who looked like she'd come straight from work, still in her blazer. The instructor, a woman named Claire with silver hair and paint-stained fingers, smiled at Maya like she'd been expecting her. "First time?" Maya nodded. "Perfect," Claire said. "Grab a brush. We're painting skies tonight." Maya sat at the table, staring at the blank sheet of paper in front of her. For a moment, she felt ridiculous. What was she doing here? She wasn't an artist. She didn't have time for hobbies. She should be home, folding laundry, helping Sophia with homework, being productive. But then Claire said, "There's no wrong way to do this. Just see what happens." So Maya dipped her brush in blue paint and made a stroke across the paper. And then another. And another. By the end of the class, she had painted something that didn't look like much, a messy, watery sky with streaks of gray and pale yellow. But it was hers. And for 90 minutes, she hadn't thought about bills or grief or loneliness. She'd just been. As she packed up to leave, the woman in the blazer leaned over. "That's really nice," she said, nodding at Maya's painting. "Thanks," Maya said, surprised. "Yours too. I'm Jenna, by the way." "Maya." They smiled at each other, and that was it. A small, brief connection. Nothing life-changing. But enough to make Maya feel a little less invisible. She went back the next week. And the week after that. And slowly, quietly, something in her began to shift. The flowers were the first thing people noticed. Old Mr. Carver, who lived 2 doors down and walked his ancient beagle every morning, stopped one day and said, "Those marigolds look real nice, Maya." She looked up from where she was watering them. "Thanks, Mr. Carver." "Brighten up the whole block," he said, tipping his hat before moving on. It was a small comment. But it stayed with her. A few days later, Maya was walking Sophia to school when the woman from the corner bakery, Rosa, her name was, waved her over. "I saved you a loaf," she said, handing Maya a paper bag. "Sourdough. Still warm." Maya blinked. "Oh, I didn't order." "I know," Rosa said, smiling. "But you're walking past here every morning now, and I thought, why not? Consider it a neighbor thing." Maya didn't know what to say. She thanked her, twice, and walked away with the bread tucked under her arm, feeling something she hadn't felt in months, seen. At the watercolor class, Jenna started saving Maya a seat. They began chatting before and after, sharing small pieces of their lives. Jenna was a lawyer, divorced, no kids, trying to find something creative to balance out the grind of her job. Maya told her about Sophia, about David, about how strange it felt to be starting over. "You're doing great," Jenna said one night, squeezing her shoulder. "Really?" Maya wanted to believe her. But then, the setback. One morning, after a night of heavy rain, Maya stepped outside to find her marigolds battered and broken. Petals scattered across the dirt. Stems bent and bruised. She stood there, staring at the mess, and felt something crack inside her. It was just flowers. She knew that. But it felt like more. It felt like proof that trying didn't matter, that things would fall apart anyway, that she was foolish to think a few small actions could change anything. Sophia found her there, still in her pajamas, looking down at the ruined plants. "We can fix them, Mama," she said. "They're dead, baby." "Not all of them." Sophia crouched down and pointed. "Look. This one's still okay. And this one." Maya knelt beside her. Sophia was right. A few of the plants had survived, their roots still strong, their leaves still green. "We can plant more," Sophia said. "Right?" Maya looked at her daughter, this fierce, hopeful little person who had lost her father and kept going anyway, and felt something harden into resolve. "Yeah," Maya said. "We can plant more." So they did. That weekend, they replanted the patch. And this time, Mr. Carver came over with a bag of mulch. "Helps with the rain," he said. "Keeps the roots strong." The next week, Rosa brought over a small clay pot with herbs. "For your windowsill," she said. "Basil grows easy." And slowly, the small acts of care began to multiply. Jenna invited Maya and Sophia over for pizza one Friday night. Mr. Carver started walking his dog past Maya's house every morning, always stopping to say hello. A neighbor Maya barely knew, a woman named Trish who worked nights, dropped off a bag of hand-me-down clothes for Sophia with a note that said, "Thought these might fit." It wasn't charity. It wasn't pity. It was just neighborliness. The quiet, steady kind that doesn't announce itself but shows up anyway. And Maya, for the first time in a long time, let herself receive it. It started with Mr. Carver. He'd been talking to Rosa at the bakery one morning, and Rosa had mentioned how nice it was to see Maya coming around again, how much brighter she seemed. "She's been through a lot," Mr. Carver said. "Lost her husband couple years back." "I didn't know that," Rosa said quietly. "Most people don't. She don't talk about it much." He paused. "But she's trying, you know? Putting in the work. I see her out there every morning, tending those flowers, walking her girl to school. Takes guts to start over." Rosa nodded. And then, almost without thinking, she said, "We should do something." "Like what?" "I don't know. Something small. Something that says we see her." Mr. Carver thought about it. Then he smiled. "I got an idea." Over the next 2 weeks, quietly and without fanfare, the neighbors started organizing. Mr. Carver talked to Trish, who talked to Jenna, who talked to Claire from the art class. Rosa spread the word at the bakery. The schoolteacher, Miss Linda, who'd noticed Sophia coming in happier lately, offered to help. Even the teenagers who skateboarded on the corner got roped in. They decided on a community cleanup day, focused on Maya's block. They'd rake leaves, pull weeds, touch up fences, plant flowers in the shared green space at the end of the street. And then, after, they'd surprise Maya with a small gathering. Nothing fancy. Just food, music, and people. The morning of the cleanup, Maya woke to the sound of voices outside. She pulled back the curtain and froze. There were at least 20 people on her block, all wearing work gloves, carrying rakes and trash bags, laughing and talking as they spread out across the street. Sophia ran to the window. "Mama, what's happening?" Maya didn't know. She threw on jeans and a sweater and went outside. Mr. Carver saw her first. "Morning, Maya," he called, grinning. What is this?" "Community cleanup day," Rosa said, walking over with a rake. "We figured it was time to spruce things up." "You in?" Maya looked around, overwhelmed. "You didn't have to." "We know," Jenna said, appearing at her side with a pair of gloves. But we wanted to. So Maya joined in. For the next 3 hours, the block transformed. Leaves were raked into neat piles. Flower beds were weeded and replanted. Fences were painted. The sidewalks were swept. Kids ran around with trash bags, turning cleanup into a game. And Maya worked alongside her neighbors, laughing and sweating and feeling, for the first time in years, like she belonged. When the work was done, someone, Rosa, Maya suspected, had set up a folding table with food. Sandwiches, fruit, cookies, lemonade. Someone else had brought a portable speaker, and music drifted down the block. People gathered. Kids played. Adults talked and ate and smiled. And then Mr. Carver raised his cup and said, "I just want to say something real quick." The crowd quieted. "This neighborhood's been home for a long time," he said. "And home ain't just houses. It's people. It's looking out for each other. It's showing up." He turned to Maya. "Maya, you've been showing up. For yourself, for your girl, for all of us. And we wanted to show up for you too." There was a murmur of agreement. Someone clapped. Then everyone did. Maya felt her throat tighten. She tried to speak, but the words caught. Sophia slipped her hand into her mother's and squeezed. "You taught me how to keep going," Jenna said softly, stepping forward. "We're here for you now." And that was it. The moment that broke her open. Maya covered her face with her hands and cried, not from sadness, but from the overwhelming relief of being held by something bigger than herself. The applause was soft, gentle. People didn't rush her. They just waited. When she finally looked up, wiping her eyes, she said the only thing she could, "Thank you." And she meant it with every part of herself. Life didn't become perfect after that day. Maya still had hard mornings. Bills still piled up. Grief still visited, uninvited, in quiet moments. But something fundamental had changed. She kept going to the watercolor class. She kept planting flowers. She started volunteering at Sophia's school one afternoon a week. She said yes when neighbors invited her to things. She stopped disappearing. And the neighborhood, in turn, kept choosing her back. Mr. Carver still walked his dog past her house every morning. Rosa still saved her bread. Jenna became a real friend, the kind who showed up with wine and bad movies when Maya needed it. And Maya learned something she hadn't known before, that healing isn't something you do alone in the dark. It's something you choose, one small step at a time. And sometimes, when you choose it, the world quietly chooses you back. One evening, months later, Maya stood on her front stoop with Sophia, watching the sunset paint the sky in shades of orange and pink. The marigolds were blooming again, brighter than ever. Sophia leaned against her. "Mama, are you happy?" Maya thought about it. Really thought about it. "Yeah, baby," she said finally. "I think I am." And for the first time in a long time, it was true. Sometimes healing begins when we choose it, and the world quietly chooses us back.